Okay, so we're recording now, and I'm going to share my screen. So we want to share. My name is Tamora Walls Hughes. I'm with the Greater Inglewood CDC. I am the Illinois Small Business Development Center Director at Greater Inglewood. And so very happy to be with you on today, this Friday morning, just to share with you some information. We are supporting this workshop under the Greater Inglewood CDC. The Small Business Development Center doesn't necessarily support nonprofits, so all supports through Small Business Development Center is for for-profit businesses. But at the Greater Inglewood CDC, we do have many clients and friends that are nonprofit. We're nonprofit, so we offer these types of workshops to support nonprofits as well. So all of the things that we're offering is through the Greater Inglewood CDC that relates to nonprofit mission work. So again, thanks for joining. On the screen, you'll see some of our other upcoming May workshops. We've had several of them. Some of you have attended those, and we greatly appreciate it. And thank you for that. We do have some pre-recorded workshops. So if you go to our website at www.gecdc.org, you will be able to grab those pre-recorded. So we still have a proposal writing 101. It'll be out there until May 16th. And then also starting a business in Illinois. That'll be available until the 19th. And we're going to actually refresh the screen and starting business in Illinois and the DECO GATA NOFO registration. Those are ones that we continually repeat each month. So you'll always see those. So just stay tuned. Also, we have something called Growth Wheel out there, basic idea. So you might want to click on that. That's a pre-recording and it actually takes you through step by step if you're trying to build a business. So that could be for nonprofit as well. It's just worksheets and strategies on how to build a better business model. So that might be useful to you. So check that recording out as well. Today, of course, we're doing not starting a nonprofit 101. On the 19th, we're actually doing Growth Wheel Crisis Management, but we actually just added something on May 18th. So you'll want to go to our website and double check that because we just added, there's a grant that's coming out through, it's called Fast Track, and there's another one called R3. And you may have seen these already, but these two particular grants are going to be launched on the 18th, okay? And so you might want to check those opportunities out. They are funding grants related to capacity building to help you with a building or acquisition and things like that. So you may want to look into that just to see if you're eligible or not. So we will be going through the RFP on the 18th, which is Monday. So go to our website at www.gecdc.org just to see the time schedule for that so that you can register and that you can be involved in that presentation. So we're going to be doing that. So we just added that. And then on the 26th, we'll be doing a social media workshop. So we'll be promoting that as well. And we have a couple of other things that are coming up. Another one called Road to Recovery, and we're doing that in joint with the Bronzeville Foundation, Urban Juncture Foundation in Bronzeville. So we're going to be doing a series, and so we're going to be promoting that too. So if you are not on our mailing list when we send out constant contacts and things like that, make sure you request it. You can go to info@gecdc.org and send us an email and say, please add me to your email list. And then we'll make sure we add you so that then all of these things that come up, you can be abreast and aware of them. So So again, thanks for joining me. Now I'm going to actually go to my next slide uh, and share some information, and we're going to get started on our presentation. And again, thanks for joining in and being with us on today. So today we're just going to talk about a nonprofit, and to be able to really look at the world of nonprofit, and to be able to talk to you about just some tips and some tricks as it relates to nonprofit. And if you have questions, you can always put those questions in the chat box. There is a chat, so that if you have questions as I'm going along, please make sure that you're putting it in the chat, since I'm the solo navigator. So if you have a question as we're going on, just put it in the chat and I'll look at the chat so I can answer for you. So again, with this being Nonprofit 101, it's really just kind of some basics. If you're already a nonprofit, some of this will be repeat to you, but hopefully it'll be a refresher for you. So I like to do this quote that Mother Teresa did. She said, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." And you can imagine that is that you by yourself might not necessarily make a impact by yourself, or you just doing it not necessarily will change the world, but if you cast it. And that's the whole thing, is that whatever you're being led to do, the mission that you have been given to do, you need to go ahead and cast it. And you know, after proper planning and that kind of thing, cast it, because you never know who it's going to help, and the ripples that it'll create. So I love that quote that she shares with us. So the question is does your passion have a purpose? And this is really speaking to the nonprofit, and identifying if your passion has a purpose as a nonprofit organization, as an organization that is outreach, as an organization that is looking to really impact and make a difference. So, you know, does your passion have purpose? And when you ask yourself that and assess that, you know, then if you can say yes, then you need to know how to turn your passion into purpose. Okay, so there's some things you need to do. You have to do your homework. You need to build a solid foundation, then incorporate your nonprofit so it becomes official, legalized. You need to file your 501c3 nonprofit tax status with the federal government. And then you need to have to do ongoing compliance, meaning that once you register, you have annual reports and all of that. So you have to keep track of that so you don't lose your status. So if that's you and this is good for you, then let's go. Let's start. So let's talk about passion versus purpose. And really understanding, do you have passion? Can your passion lead you into a purpose? Picasso said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. So that is our sole thing when we're nonprofits, is that we find our gift, we find the mission that we're desiring to do, and then we give it away. And that's what makes a nonprofit, is that we're taking the gifts and talents and really helping and being able to help someone else, and help communities and help a nation. So you want to make sure that you have then the passion. Definition of passion is a strong liking or desire for or devotion to some activity, object, or concept. So that's a passion, where you have a devotion to something. And many times we have passions with hobbies and things like that. We have many passions. But the question is, again, can your passion be converted into a purpose? And purpose is something that you set up as an object or end to attain or intentionally. So now you're taking your passion, now you're applying that passion into a purpose intentionally. You're doing this because now you've laid out a mission and a purpose for what you want to do and a roadmap to do that. So when you're turning your passion into a purpose, then you need a plan. So you need a plan. You need to figure out where you're going, how you're going to go. And then if somebody else is going along with you, you need to lead them along the way as well. So in order to do that, you need a plan. Our goal can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. And that was Pablo Picasso as well. You have to have a plan. The plan needs to lead you into a direction that you know where you're headed and that you can vigorously act so that then you can move straight ahead and go as far as you need to go. But without a plan, then you're not headed on a route of success, because without a plan, you have not come up with options on what to do if this happens or what to do if this happens. So you want to make sure a nonprofit needs a plan too. Many times when I ask people, they say, Tamora, can you write me a grant? I'm looking for some funding. And I said, okay, well, what's your plan? And they're like, I didn't think I needed a plan. Every business, nonprofit or for-profit, needs a plan. There has to be some direction that has been laid out on strategy, on what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, who's going to help you, where you're getting the money from, all of that. You have to have a plan. So you need to do that before you start. So you need to have some idea. You need to jot something down on paper. I would suggest go checking out that video that I have out there until tomorrow with the Proposal 101. It talks about building at least the proposal, but it also taps into the plan. So you need some kind of plan, organization plan, business plan. It will help you when you're ready to go after funding, because now you can just look at the plan. You don't have to kind of sit there and try to figure out what you're going to say and what you're going to do. You've already pre-thought some of those things out. So make sure that you're looking forward and trying to develop a plan. So there's some steps that you have to do. One, you have to do your homework. And I'll say this over and over again for nonprofits, for-profits. You must conduct an analysis. You must know that nonprofit is right for you, and you must know your alternatives. You got to know your alternatives of what you have and what you can and cannot do. Then you need to build a step two, and that is building a foundation. So you need to draft a mission statement. In fact, you have to have a mission statement when you incorporate with the state of Illinois. They'll call it a purpose statement. Same thing. You have to give them what your nonprofit is. They look at that purpose statement then to see if you're really a nonprofit or not. Because if you speak of anything that looks like a for-profit, they may deny your application. So you got to make sure that your purpose statement is related to community outreach or support or helping or building up individuals. So you got to make sure that your mission statement is in that arena. Then you write the plan, as we talked about, business plan, organizational plan, whatever you want to call it, you need a plan. Then you have to develop your board. So you need some people on board with you. When you incorporate in the state of Illinois, you must have at least 3 people in order to incorporate. Then step 3 is incorporating your nonprofit. So that's doing your registrations with the state of Illinois, getting your EIN number, which is your employee identification number, through the IRS. You'll need all of that in order to become legalized, okay? Then step 4 is filing with the IRS to get your 501c3. And there are 2 filings that you can do. You can do the short form or the long form, and we'll explain what those are in a minute. And then also understanding if you're a non-eligible or an eligible 501c3. We're going to talk about that too. Types of tax-exempt status. Then step 5 is then the other registrations you'll need. You'll need a DUNS number. You'll need a SAMS number. You'll need an Illinois sales tax exempt number. In the state of Illinois, each state is different. And then you'll need also to register with the Illinois Attorney General and actually show. It's almost like the Better Business Bureau for nonprofits. It's really to show within the state that you are an official business, that you're not operating illegally, you're not taking people's money, that kind of thing. And it puts you in that status. So if somebody needs to check on your organization, then they can see it under the Attorney General's, and you have to register for that. And then of course, like I said, step 6 is ongoing compliance, that you have to make sure that you are actually applying for your annual reports and so forth. So now our next slide, and I want to make sure, is everybody okay out there? Want to make sure we're all good, and that you can hear me. Okay, great. Just want to double check. Okay, so here's a fact, and some of these numbers have actually changed. They've actually gone up since I actually pulled this together last year. So facts of how many nonprofits are existing. Worldwide, there's approximately 10 million or more now, really. But then in the United States, there are about 1.5 million or so nonprofits that exist. And then in the state of Illinois, about 105,000 or so. And in fact, like I said, that was last year. These numbers are probably increased, particularly with this pandemic. There are people that are now moving into the nonprofit world because of the opportunity of getting some grants compared to being a for-profit business and trying to get a loan or whatever the case may be. So there has been an increase because people are looking to do some outreach and to do some support. So those are just some facts, just so that you'll know your competition, the people that are out there, okay? So step number 1, let's talk about it. Do your homework. We gotta conduct that analysis. We gotta know if nonprofit is right, and then we gotta know our alternatives, okay? So let's look at do your homework. When you're conducting an analysis, the basic thing that you're doing is you're finding out if there are other organizations out there, a nonprofit, for-profit, or government organizations that are doing the same thing that you're doing, or either they're doing similar work in your community. And it'll be harder to get support if you are just duplicating services versus if you're improving or adding to them. So you don't want, especially in a nonprofit world, that is just competition and then people have to make a choice of where they're going to go. You want to look at what the existing services are doing, and if they're not really doing something that you know you can do, that's when you build that additional component, because then you can offer something that everybody else is not offering. So it's a great opportunity if you do have something where you can be able to add on to what's not in your community. You need to find the demographics in the population data so that you'll know who you're servicing. You need to know the individuals that are within your realm and in your community, and you need to know what they need, because you'll be able to put that in your plan when there's a portion in your plan as well as in proposals. What they'll say is, what's the need? And you'll have to explain the need. And so this is a great way to start pulling that information now, so that then you can be able to say how many people live in the community, how many people live in the area, what type of people are they, the percentage, is it low income, if they're on any kind of programs that's providing service to them, relief funds or anything like that. You can find that information and look that data up, because then that's how you're going to express to anybody that this is my target market. Okay, so where do you find this? These are some places. Some of these, the data I just noticed that they have changed their websites, but you can still research them. Like American Fact Finder is on the U.S. Census Bureau. They actually are changing some numbers and things. So there's some other tools on the U.S. Census Bureau to be able to look up data, to be able to put in a zip code and find information. USA.gov is another one. Pew Research Center, any kind of National Center of Education Statistics will really talk about schools, education, things like that. So you can pull up stats on that. Administration of Aging, dealing with seniors and things like that. So based upon what you're talking about and what you're wanting to get into, these are some of the kind of portals that you can go, so that you can find the demographics, that you can find the data that you need to be able to put in your plan, but also when it's time to write a grant or a proposal, in the statement of need, you will be able to pull that information and let them know, you know who your target audience is. Okay, so you want to do your homework. We start doing that now. And then you have to ask yourself this question: is a nonprofit right for me? Many times we talk about having the passion, but the question is, do you really have a strong purpose? Because you can have the passion, we can have a hobby, there could be a lot of stuff that we like to do, but can it be transferred or made into something that has passion, that has a purpose, that has a foundation that you can build upon, so that then you can be able to see growth? So the first question is then, is the nonprofit that you're talking about, is it right for you? Meaning, public charities must be organized and exempt as a 501c3 on the Internal Revenue. And if you want to start a nonprofit so that you can get grants to pay yourself a salary, then if that's the only thing you want, then you need to stop right now, because it's more than just paying yourself a salary. It's really doing more of the outreach. So on average, most funders will cover 40% of salary, and all the rest must go toward the program. Okay, so you're not going to get rich quick just because you're a nonprofit and that you're paying yourself a salary. You might have to find a couple of grants to build a salary in order to get the salary you want, but you might not necessarily find it just in one. So, but if you're getting into it just so that you get a payroll check, you should stop, because it's beyond just the payroll. It is that purpose with that passion that you're aiming for. The second question is, do you have a sustainable business plan, organization plan for 3 years? Where's the funding coming from? So that's another question, because even as a nonprofit, you might want to do some things, but depending totally on a grant is not the way to go. A grant for a nonprofit should only be 6 to 8% of your funding, which means that the other 90-some% of your funding should come from somewhere else. And you might say, okay, well, where is that coming from? It's coming from campaigns, crowdfunding, donors, your board, social enterprise projects. It's coming from various other places, but it's not coming from grants. If you get a lot of funding from grants, that's a bonus, because most grants are only a year or two. Maybe you'll find one that's 3, but most of them are only a year, which means that after it is exhausted out, you need funding to run that program to keep going. So after the grant is over with, you need to have resources and to run that grant over and over again. So you definitely have to make sure that you're not getting into this just to make a salary, and then also that it should be sustainable. Um, a question here. So I'm going to be stopping and answering. So you can ask questions as I'm moving along. Good morning. So about the budget salary, which is a new concept to me. Was a reasonable salary for a nonprofit director. So basically, as a nonprofit director, it's really going to be based upon the project itself. Because if it is a year-long project and it's according to the number of people you're supporting, so if you have 100 or 200 people in that size, and as a director, are you going to be 100%, or are you going to be 50%, or are you going to be 25% because you're going to have program managers and other people involved? So you'll have to really look at the percentage of what you will be doing as a director. If you are the only person as a director then, and you're doing all the jobs 100%, then that 40% of the salary I talked about that you should be aiming toward, you'll probably get 40% of the salary. Now, based upon the grant, so if you actually have a grant that's like 100,000 or more, and you consider then 40% of that 100,000 to go towards salary, and it's just you, then that's what you will budget for. On average for a nonprofit, if it's a small nonprofit, you're just getting started, don't have a lot, then you pretty much as a director want to keep your budget in the kind of $30,000-$40,000 range if you're doing it full time. Again, it's really based upon the revenue you already have built up. It's based upon the grants that you're going after, and it's based upon the number of hours and activities that you'll be doing, as well as the number of people you'll have. Because if you're not doing all the work and you're going to pay other people to be a part of this, then you wouldn't get kind of a full blown. But as you get bigger, you'll recognize that your salary will increase. Take a look. If you have an opportunity, go to the American Red Cross, go to the Hearts Association, all them, and look at what the big people are making. The executive directors, they're making big bucks. And the reason for that is because they have big organizations. So the larger your organization, then the more you will increase in salary. So you're going to gradually grow into this. But on average, if you have a very small organization, you may only be giving yourself between 30, maybe 40,000 a year if it's a full-time position. So again, it's not something where you kind of are gonna live once you first start. Your salary is not gonna kind of give that where you can live off of it. You may still need to acquire funding as a entrepreneur or something like that in order to make up for the salary that you really need in order to live. So hopefully I've answered that question for you. If you have another question, just please put it in the chat. What is your mission? And is it making money, or are you executing a charitable function? Again, is this right for you? And are the majority of the contracts and proposals, applications requiring 501? Because if it is, there's some money out there that you see and you want to go after. Most RFPs or requests for proposals are looking for that 501. The 501c3 is just being able to tax category to say that you are a nonprofit so that they can give you the money and it becomes a tax write-off, basically. So you need to be a 501c3. Even like if somebody wants to give you a donation, and if it's over $500 or so, most of the time they want a 501 to give it to, because then when you give them the letter with your tax number, they take that letter, and when they're getting ready to do their taxes, they add that letter to their donation list, so that then they can write off the money they gave you. But they can't do that unless they have a 501c3 number and a letter to show that they gave that money away, so they don't have to pay taxes on it. So that is the purpose and the reason for that. Okay. You have to know your alternatives. So, what are the biggest challenges of most nonprofits is to develop and to maintain a reliable income stream. Okay. So you got to make sure that once you get this thing started, and especially if you have staff and you have people that you're trying to pay every month, you're going to have to make sure that you have the right foundation and that you have the right momentum, because you don't want to get people involved. You start doing community work, people are expecting things from you, and then all of a sudden the money runs out and then you have to stop. Okay. So you want to make sure that you have a reliable income stream. Estimates vary, but most experts give that less than half of the nonprofit startups survive beyond 5 years, or those that do survive, perhaps 1/3 are in financial distress. So, you're excited when you get started because it's something that now you have the passion you had, you can turn it into purpose now. You're excited about what you're going to be able to do to help your community, to help people. But that excitement does not carry you all the way. You're going to have the plan. You're going to have sustainable revenue, especially when you start involving other people, staff, and people that you need to be able to pay. Or it may be facility costs. You got to pay the lights, the gas, the heat, and if you're in a facility. So all of those things have to come into play, and you'll see that when you do your plan. So the other alternatives then is to, one, consider partnerships. So identify nonprofit or for-profit organizations already serving the same needs of the population that you serve. So many times we want to do it and we want to do it ourselves, and we don't want to enjoy partnership with other people. And that's understood. But if somebody's out there and they're doing it well and they're doing exactly what you want to do, then why not try to partner up with them? Identify how you can be a part, or that you can bring something to the table, or a for-profit could use you as well. There are many opportunities out there where a for-profit does the execution, but they need trainers. So they need people to train. I see this a lot with workforce development. So what happens is that if, say for instance, you are a nonprofit organization and you have a workforce development program, you're training people on careers, you're training people on maybe getting their GED, you're doing a variety of things. It may be like the reentry program where people are actually coming back from being in the justice system, and now they've been released and they got to go to a workforce or a training program, career development program. As a nonprofit, nonprofits are doing that. So they're being able to do these various programs. But the thing is, it's not enough just to get trained. Now they need to have some place to go. So many times it's the collaboration with a nonprofit and a for-profit organization that then work together, so that after they get trained, after they know what they need to do, and you train them up, that then you're connected to a for-profit organization that can now be able to place them in a job or do something, because now they know, the for-profit knows that you trained them and that they're ready to go. So that might be an opportunity where you consider a partnership. How can I, as a trainer of these programs, secure the grant? All I do is work. Okay, so basically, as a trainer, you would need to be a nonprofit organization, or if it's another nonprofit organization and you're the trainer, you get pulled in or added as a contract person. so that then when the nonprofit gets the grant or has an opportunity, the line item for consultant or contractor can be added so that then the trainer will get paid to be the trainer, but the nonprofit gets the money in order to pay the trainer. So that's how that works. So, but if you want to go after the same grant as a nonprofit, that's fine too, but you'll need to be a nonprofit organization as well. So in order to go after grant dollars, you'll need to be a nonprofit organization as well, unless this particular grant is for for-profits. So if it is a grant that is deemed for-profit to be for-profit eligible, then you can go after that and then include whoever you need in the salary, or also include another nonprofit organization because you're applying for it to be your filter, meaning that you're going to get people from the nonprofit, from the training, and then they're going to filter those people to you in order for you to do the job. So either vice versa. But basically that's how you both can go after the same grant if you want, but usually if you can collaborate, you want to try to collaborate as much as possible, because what the funder will look at is how many people are applying for this and what are the community areas. And if you're down the street from the nonprofit or somebody else applying, then they have to make a decision of who they're going to get the money to. And so the first thing they'll look and say, okay, why aren't they talking to each other? Why they're right down the street from each other. Why aren't they just collaborating? And many times that's a challenge to collaborate. I've heard this over and over again, is that there's a level of trust in the collaboration. So that's why people don't. But a funder is going to look and say, hey, you guys need to be talking to each other. You guys need to collaborate so that then you do one thing, they do another thing, and then all we have to do is fund one organization, one lump sum. So those are some of the things that you have to think about. If you are a nonprofit, but you're not a 501c3, or if you're new and you're going after a grant, particularly like government grants, sometimes you have to find a fiscal sponsor. And basically that's somebody that has been in the game for a while, that's set up to be a fiscal sponsor, where they write the grant, they include you in the grant, and then when they get the grant money, they give you the portion of the money that you're supposed to get in order to execute. And then they get a portion just to do administrative work, and then they have to do all the reporting. So that's kind of how that works, which means that, and I always suggest, is that if you do find a sponsor, beyond the grant, you should also do a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, or MOA, memorandum of agreement, basically saying, if we get this grant, and say for instance the grant is $100,000, but you as the nonprofit are in it, but the other nonprofit is applying because they have a longer history, that then in your MOU, it's going to state specifically how much money you're getting out of it, because then it becomes a legal contract. So that then once they get the money, they just can't run off with the money. That then you have an MOU, you can go to court if they do not want to pay you, especially when both parties have signed off on it. So there's some other work that you have to do if you're going to do fiscal, get involved with the fiscal sponsor. And then, or the other thing is just becoming a consultant, kind of what I was just sharing, is that if you have a passion about something, but you really don't want to do the nonprofit world, then you can actually work with other nonprofits and just be a consultant on their line item and get paid to do what you do in your special skill sets. So you can go to Joanne Fritz. She has some information about that. That's where I got some of this from, www.thebalance.com. Hopefully her site is still out there, but this is alternatives to starting a nonprofit. Okay. So number 2, we'll move along. Again, if you have questions, just pop it in the chat box so I can make sure I'm answering them. Build a solid foundation. Okay. The website is, let me go back. It's www.thebalance.com. www.thebalance.com. Okay. And again, I'm going to make these slides available after the recording, or well, the recording will be available so that then you can always play the recording back over again if you miss something. Okay. Okay, and great. Thanks for checking. Yeah, the site is up. Thank you so much. So number 2 then is to build a solid foundation. So that means you need that mission statement, you need a business plan, and you need to develop a board, okay? And some of these are the most challenging things to do. The first thing is the mission statement, and developing the mission statement is your most critical step. One of the reasons I say it is because when you incorporate, particularly like if you're in the state of Illinois, and all the other states require something too. In the state of Illinois, cyberdrive.com, Jesse White, where you incorporate with the state of Illinois to become a 501c3, on that form, when you go to the site, you can fill out the form, and what they'll ask is, what is your purpose? Okay, so it might not say mission. What is your purpose? That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the mission statement. Okay, so, and they're looking for things in your mission statement that talk about outreach, community support, help. They're looking for stuff like that. So I'll give you some examples of this. So this is just a organization, PANPHA, PANPHA, represents over 320 nonprofit providers of long-term care and housing services for 65,000 elderly residents across Pennsylvania. The association is committed to helping its members provide quality care efficiently and effectively for the individuals and families they serve. In an age of impersonal care, PANPHA members put people before profit. Okay, so that's kind of a sample. Okay, here's another one. So that was a long one, but it's very detailed. It's very clear. A mission statement should always be measurable. So there's numbers in there. So you know how many nonprofit providers they have. They gave the numbers. All of that's in their mission statement. But here's a little shorter one. The Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation seeks to improve cardiovascular health through education and clinical research. So it's a little bit shorter one, but it is straight to the point. I know who it is, I know what they do, and I know how they do it. Okay, so that's a whole part of your mission. When you're building a mission statement, you can be very detailed and put the numbers in there, or if you are not really established yet, you will probably put something together like the second one, because at least you can tell them who you are, tell them what you do, and tell them how you do it. Okay, and so either way, it's showing community outreach or changing a problem and coming up with a solution, that kind of thing. So these are samples of mission statement. Okay, so now you need to build a solid foundation. Okay, so that is then writing a business plan. You need to write a business plan. And sometimes I tell people, think of it this way: it's an organization plan if you don't want to write a business plan. But a nonprofit is a business. It's just the execution of the end result about the money, and that more money is going back out into the program and not into your pocket. Compared to a for-profit, the money is going in, hopefully, into the person's pocket. Okay, so it's still a business, and you still have to operate it like a business, and you have to think about your nonprofit as a business. That is the only way you're going to be successful. So just as with for-profit businesses, a business can help, a business plan can help a nonprofit describe how it intends to achieve its mission. in a more specific detail, and it also could be used to outline a new project or a new venture. Okay, a business plan process involves the following steps: research the market, research, that's key. Investigating the resources needed. So what do you need in order to get done the purpose that you have set forth? Devising implementation and marketing strategy. How are you going to get it started? And also, how are you going to get the word out so that other people know you're doing this? Okay. And then assessing risk. How are you going to be able to know if you're on the right track? And if you're not, how do you know how to pivot and transition without losing your momentum? And then determining ways to evaluate success. You want to be able to make sure that you can see how, if you're being successful, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Are you meeting the goals that you set? If you said you're going to reach 100 people and you're going to break it down in quarters so that then you can see, did I meet 25 this time? Did I meet 30 this time? You got to break that down so that then you'll know if you're on the right path to success. Then here's the biggest one. Oh, I get so many questions related to this one, because you have to develop a board, which means you really want to develop a board of like-minded people that are thinking like you're thinking. So as a nonprofit, you have to have a governing board, because really then the nonprofit does not belong to you. Although you're the visionary, you had the idea, once you incorporate it, it is not yours. It belongs to the board. Okay. And many people think because of their role and because they thought it up and came up with it, that is mine and that kind of thing. When you incorporate, it is not yours. You have to have a board of directors as a nonprofit, and it is the board then that agrees upon it, because everybody on the board is liable. Okay, so there's some legal responsibilities and some roles that a board will have to take on. But in order to carry these duties out effectively, the board will change as the organization grows and matures. And you'll see this. While recruitment is an important step in the process, a systematic approach to board development, orientation, training, evaluation, cultivation of prospective board members, this is going to be critical long term. The reason why I'm saying it is because you may start out and you're going to get mama and cousin, and you're going to get some people just so you can get incorporated, because you need 3. And so you'll get those people to be on your board, which is fine. But you really want people that are already like-minded and already on the same page with you, so you don't have to worry about when you need to get stuff done. It is your board that's going to help. Many times, the visionary, the person that starts a nonprofit, ends up wearing all the hats, because the board members are not really the board members that they need. They just got them so that they can incorporate. But your goal should be to research and to recruit and try to find people that are on the same page as you, have the same passion, have the same purpose, so that then the skill sets they bring at the table, they'll be able to bring them and be excited about it. Many times people that are on the board, they're just on the board because you ask them, but not necessarily that they're on the board to do some work. Board people must be 100+ invested in whatever you're doing in order for this to not be so stressful on just the person that came up with the idea. And so sometimes you'll burn out as a nonprofit if you are the visionary and you start something and you don't have the right people on your board. So you need to start recruiting so that then you have long-term success. Many of the people that start out with you on your board are not the same people 5 years from now. And the reason for that is because everybody else has a vision too, meaning that they may not have time for the vision that you have now, and they want to go off and do something else, which means that now you're left with trying to find more people to help you. And sometimes the people that actually stay more than 5 years, those are the ones that are like-minded. Those are the ones that you want on board with you because they're in there for the long term. But you must start then looking for dedicated and active volunteers, people that are going to really be able to help you get this going. They're going to be willing to be donors. Okay, so you're going to have to look at people that maybe give to you already. That might be somebody. Or you might have to look for or ask people for nominations and recommendations if you have a board already. And then sometimes you have to look beyond the nonprofit world. You have to talk to some youth, especially if you're doing youth programs. I always suggest if you have youth programs and young people, millennial programs and stuff like that, they need to be on, somebody needs to be on your board, because then you have their thinking and how they're thinking about stuff. If it relates to business, you should have some business people on your board. If it relates to any particular organization, you should have those type of people on your board. So you should start kind of writing a list of who's going to be on your board and the support that they're going to be able to bring to the table. And the board development, as you become a nonprofit and developing a governing organization, with the board of directors or your trustees, they usually fulfill several goals and responsibilities, and those include overseeing the financial operations, also maintaining the legal and ethical standards for your organization. They provide the leadership and the direction, so they're part of that strategic planning and strategy. Also, they serve as a guardian of the public trust, meaning that once a person becomes on the board, they are just reliable or responsible as the person that came up with it. So that's why when people ask, can you be on my board? Many times I say no, because you want somebody that's 100% plus committed, but also you want somebody that's on your board, that they're able to help and support you, and then that each person understand that if the organization doesn't do something right, misappropriation of funds and things like that, it's not on the person that messed up the money, it's on the board. So whoever's on the board, then they can go after you, particularly if you don't have board insurance. Then they go after your house, your car, your whatever, your monies, especially if you're sitting on the board. So you got to make sure that even if you are on the board, that you make sure that somebody has some board insurance, so that then if you're sitting on the board and anything goes wrong and you didn't know about it, if it goes to court, they're going to look for the board and they're going to be liable, and then they could go after your own assets. So you got to make sure that you have the right people on the board and that you're held accountable. So you're going to have to be held accountable. That's why when you register with the Attorney General, that's what makes everybody held accountable, because if anything heads to court, Attorney General is going to get it, and they're going to see who was on the board, and then they're going to send you a letter and say some stuff went wrong with this nonprofit organization, and we're going to have to call you into court. And that has happened to me before, but in fact, I had already submitted a letter saying that I was no longer on the board, because and all of the things that were going on with the nonprofit were before I even joined the board. And so I kind of pulled myself back and was like, oh no, not involved with that. So you got to make sure when you're getting people involved with you and on the board, that everybody's on the up and up. Okay. Step number 3, incorporate your nonprofit. So here's where you need to register with the state of Illinois, and you also need to get your EIN number. So why do you have to incorporate? Kind of explained this before. To show that you're formally a creditable organization, and your services are good services. Also just gives you corporate structure so that the liabilities that's on you then will only be within the officers and the directors and not your personal one. That's why you need board insurance once you get started. And then also the IRS requires all kinds of organizing documents, and they have policies and procedures that must be kept in place as a corporation. So if you're going to register and you're in the state of Illinois, you're going to register with www.cyberdriveillinois.com. And when you go to the site, you'll look up the assumed name, you'll incorporate. So you'll type in the name that you're thinking about. Once you type it in and do a search, it'll let you know if it's eligible or not. If it is eligible, then it'll take you, and you can actually go and apply online and fill out the online application. And I think there's if you want to expedite it, it's an extra fee, or you can pay the $50 and print the form out and mail it in, okay? And then you can then incorporate either by mail or you can do it online. Online it costs a little bit more, okay? So you want to then draft up a nonprofit, your bylaws, and basically this is a document that says this is how we're going to run the organization. It is the governing rules that you run your organization. All of this is approved then by your board of directors, and this is what everybody follows, the bylaws. And then during your initial board meeting, your directors should formally adopt then the organization's mission, articles of incorporation, and bylaws, meaning that you will agree upon the mission, the incorporation, the bylaws, you'll vote on it, and then you'll approve it as an official document by vote, okay? So, but the first thing is you want to register them with Secretary of State. Then you can register, and you can kind of do these simultaneously. You can register with IRS and then Secretary of State, either way. And so if you register with IRS, which is the FEIN number, Federal Employee Identification Number, that's www.irs.gov. There is no filing fee, so you don't have to pay anything. It is free, but you can actually register online and you can fill out all the paperwork online and get your EIN number right away. It'll actually give you a PDF electronic document. And so you could save that, print that so that you keep it for your files, or you can have them mail it to you, either way. But you want to keep that number because now every time you fill out a form or application or grant or something like that, and they ask for the FEIN number, it's almost like the organization having its own social security number. So instead of using your own personal social security number, now anything that you're applying for or filling out under the organization umbrella, you're going to actually use the FEIN number so that the organization carries its own personalized number. Then step 4, you're going to file then for your 501c3, and this is where you are positioned and put in a place that then you can apply for grants and be eligible for certain things. There is a short and a long form, and there are also some things related to eligible and non-eligible, tax exempt, and social enterprise. So we're going to talk about these now. So step number 4, short form and long form. So the first thing is to recognize that the IRS has 2 different tiers of filing structure. So they have the new 1023 easy form. It's only a few pages. You can actually do it online. Doesn't take long, probably about 10 minutes or so. It doesn't ask as much information as a long form does, but the stipulation is that if you're going to have, or you have 50,000 or less in gross receipts, meaning money that's coming in, then you would be able, unless less than the assets of 250,000 or less, then you're eligible to use the EZ form. Okay. So when you go online and you do the EZ form, you go to pay.gov, and in the search box you can type 1023 EZ, and when you type it in, it'll take you straight to that page. It's going to ask you a few questions, but you can start filling out that form. The fee may have gone down slightly. I know at one time it was $275. It may be a little bit less now. It kind of goes up and down. So you'll have to check when you're going through there. It's going to ask either you pay with a check, a number, or a credit card in order to register. But you'll fill that out. You want to make sure, though, compared to the long form, you're going to make sure that you have some of the documentation that they may ask for after you sign it, fill it out. You might not need to, you're not going to need to attach anything to the EZ, but you should have your bylaws, you should have your incorporate. There's certain documents that you should just have, just in case they write you back and say, hey, we're missing this, could you send this? And you have to do that turnaround right away, because if not, and they usually, I think, give you like 14 days. If you don't turn that document back out, or those documents or whatever they're requesting in that time period, then they keep your money. So you got to make sure when you're filling this out, you have all of this information, okay? So when you're doing that and filling that out, you want to see if you qualify for the EZ. And if you don't, then you'll actually fill out the long form. And it will require you to attach bylaws, program description, incorporation. It's going to ask you to attach that, all of that information, budget. It's going to ask for all of that information on the long form, and you'll have to send in a packet of information. You have to mail it in and send in a packet of information. Okay. So then non-eligible and eligible. So if you are a church, you are automatically considered a 501c3, but you are considered a 501c3 non-eligible, meaning that yes, you're a nonprofit, but you are not eligible to give out tax-exempt filing or numbers. And I've seen this happen in the past, that because they were a church and they were giving out the tax letters so people could write it off their taxes, if you are not a 501c3 eligible under the IRS and file with the IRS as an eligible institution, then you cannot write a tax exempt letter. Okay. And so this is what makes it non-eligible, eligible. Yes, I am a 501c3 as a church, and so I'm eligible in that way, but that's it. And I'm eligible as far as the state of Illinois, but that's it. To be a eligible 501c3 across the board, you have to go through the IRS, the government IRS, so that then you're known and seen throughout the whole United States as a nonprofit organization. But you have to do the 1023 in order to do that. So just to, you know, and then you can give out tax deduction letters. So if somebody gives you a donation of a computer, or they give you a donation of a car or something like that for the organization, then you can write them a letter telling them what the value of it was, and that then they can take that letter, and then when they're doing their taxes, write it off on their taxes as a donation. You can only do that if you're listed with the IRS as a 501c3 organization. So hopefully that was clear and you understand that. Here's some of the tax exempt status numbers. So the most common one is the 501c3, and that's a code for it. So this is for any charitable organization, religious, scientific, you know, these are the codes for the 501c3. But then there is 501c7. So these are social clubs, things like that, where they're just clubs. So they get a different category. The 501(a) or the 10, these are your fraternal, your societies, your sororities, fraternities, kind of, they file under this number. Then the 19, the 23 for the veterans, religious or apostolic associations is a D. Child care organizations, if you're a nonprofit, they are Ks. And then the 521A for anything related to farmers, corporative association. So each of these activities fall within a certain kind of tax exempt code, and each of them have things that are allowed and not allowed. So the most one to receive the grants and stuff like that is the 501c3. Some of these organizations, some of these other codes may or may not be eligible to receive grants like the 501c3. So just so that you kind of aware that there are a lot of other filing tax status. Then the social enterprise, and you may have seen this, you can be a 501c3 and have a social enterprise where you can still generate revenue as earned income. And a lot of people do that. And so when you look at the stats, you'll see that there are many nonprofit organizations that actually sells goods and services. And so I always put Girl Scouts up there as an example, that Girl Scouts, they're known for selling cookies. They started out in 1917, and they were just selling cookies to raise funds for their troop in Oklahoma. But you know, when they were founded, uh, they needed help teaching practical skills, life skills. And so the cookies is what did it. That helped them to teach. And basically, with them selling cookies, and I think the numbers increased, that they have over 3.3 million girls, members, and they're generating about $700 million or more now in cookies. And so when you look at that, it's a 501c3, but it's still generating that much money. And that's because they're a social enterprise. And what makes the difference from being a for-profit doing the same thing is that the cookies is just the tool to teach entrepreneurship. That's it. And that's how you work around that. Is that if you have something and you're teaching somebody, but then on the back end, you're utilizing something to generate revenue, it's not the stuff that you're doing to generate the revenue, it's the skills and the training that you're doing, that then it is considered a social enterprise and allowable expense. For example, if somebody has a restaurant, okay, so if you have a restaurant and you want to implement a program for young girls that are re-entry or young moms or something like that, and you want to teach them culinary skills, what you can do is, if you have the restaurant, you can do the teaching and the training as a nonprofit, teaching them culinary skills, because it's a training program. And you're probably going to maybe find some grants and things like that related to workforce or educational training and skill training to help pay for that type of program. You're teaching them, but then on the front end of your restaurant is where you have the actual dining area. So in the dining area, you're teaching them how to host, how to serve, so forth. But the people that are coming in are paying cash for the food. So the revenue that is generated then is the revenue that you use to, one, keep running the program. So that's how it becomes a social enterprise. That also would include salary, whoever's running the program, getting paid salary. the actual student participants, maybe you're paying them as well. They're getting paid. Then lights, electricity, and also portion of the rent for your facility is getting covered in that cost, as the money that you're making from the people that are coming in to buy the food or sitting to dine in. So that's the way you can actually then have that under your 501c3 as a tax write-off and not have to pay taxes on it, because it is, the restaurant is just the tool. It's the training that you're doing. And so you have to look at it from that perspective. So if there are other things that you want to develop a social enterprise to generate revenue for your nonprofit, that could be potentially an opportunity for you. So the model works best when a nonprofit has valuable product or expertise, which I just stated. Also, the user has the ability to pay, meaning that organization, or you have something where they're purchasing something for you. And then also the nonprofit's mission is job training or skill building. So it's not to make money off the cookies, it's the skill building that they're using the cookies as the vehicle in order to execute that. So just to look, you want to make sure that whatever you're planning on doing as a social enterprise, it aligns with that, so that you're not violating any guidelines and things like that. Okay. So we're almost done. Social enterprise again, and this is, I won't read through the whole thing, but these are just some of the advantages. I think I kind of shared that, it's income that's unrestricted when you do a social enterprise, meaning that the monies that you're generating are received as tax deductible donations, so that then they can be written off, and then this could be made for you to help support your program, another revenue generator, so you don't have to totally depend on grants, that now you can utilize another stream of revenue to support your program or your organization. But some of the challenges with a nonprofit is being able to get a substantial amount of income in order to run this. So sometimes doing a social enterprise, it's a business, and you might not be able to do it by yourself. So, having enough income on your side, on the business side, in order to run this, that might be a challenge. It could be costly in order to do that. Also, there could be some conflicts of interest related to that, particularly like if the restaurant belongs to the person that's on the board, that kind of thing. Got to make sure that there's no conflict of interest related to that, because anybody on your board should be volunteering. You should not be paying them unless you have agreed in some kind of vote that for a particular project, that person is going to get paid for a certain period of time for a particular project and not long term. So there's some certain things that there may be a conflict of interest, or like if you're voting on it, the person that you're saying to pay can't be in the room for the vote. They can't vote for themselves. So there's certain protocols and things that you have to follow when voting and things of that sort. Is there a limited amount of income for social? No. I mean, so with the social enterprise, just like with the Girl Scouts, I mean, they're making, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. So with Girl Scouts, if you actually go to the Girl Scouts and look at who's on their board, they have a huge, vast amount of people on the board. And then also they have then what they call staff. So they have an executive director, and under executive director, then they have staff. They have people that they pay in order to run the operation. So as long as they're making the money, and then they're distributing it back to the people that are getting paid to execute then the purpose then everything is fine. It's when money start flowing into people's pockets beyond their salary. So if my salary, if I work for the Girl Scouts, the headquarters, and I'm getting paid as a secretary, and I'm getting paid $40,000 a year because now they're using my skills to help get this program running, and I'm helping to run the office, then that's all I get. So I'm not getting a 40,000 plus I'm getting another 20,000 because we got another grant and all that. You get what you get, whatever, as a salary person. So that's what makes a difference, that if you're a for-profit business and you are running the for-profit, the revenue that comes in, when it comes in, there's no stipulation around that. If you make $100,000 because of any kind of service and products that you've done as a for-profit, you can put all that $100,000 in your pocket as the owner, and there'd be no limits to that. But how do you run an organization if you keep taking all the money? So, you just have to make sure, as a non-for-profit, most of it goes toward the project. It does not go towards salary. Okay. So that's where the limits come in, even for social enterprise. Social enterprise runs under the same rules as it's still a 501c3. It's just a social enterprise, which means that as a social enterprise, if I'm generating revenue like a restaurant or whatever, and I'm generating revenue, most of that revenue has to go back to the program, not just all salaries. Okay. And so you have to make sure that whatever monies you're generating, that under the 501c3, it's still program, the revenue coming in is real supporting the program and not just the salaries of people. Okay. And that's how they designate it in doing that. So again, it's kind of like 40-60. So whatever's generated, 60 needs to go back to the program. The other 40, if you need to have people in the operation of things and running things, you need to have staff, you need to have consultants, then that's when you have to figure out the cost. Because if you're not generating enough money to have all of that, then you might not be able to execute it unless you're bringing in your own money, or unless you're doing fundraising, crowdfunding to generate more money outside of what the enterprise is generating. Because the enterprise first starting out might not generate a whole bunch to actually operate the whole program. You might have to have some revenue coming from different places in order to cover all the costs. Okay, so these are some challenges that if you are going to do a social enterprise, it's like doing a business, and just like with a small business, trying to figure out where the money's coming from in order to run it. There are some tax implications there. So, if the IRS decides that your nonprofit, that a nonprofit's business efforts are not substantially related, or is not connected to the mission, that could jeopardize your 501c3. Because if they see you generating and making money, and it's not, the money that you make as a social enterprise is not going, most of it going back to the program, then that could jeopardize your 501c3 status. So you got to make sure that it's not generating money just for money to go into your pocket, but it's generating money to keep the program and the mission going. So you got to make sure that you don't mess up your 501c3. And I gave an example, women's shelter open up a bakery restaurant to supplement for the grants and donations that they already get. That would likely be considered unrelated to the organization's mission, unless it was staffed by women from the shelter. So it's kind of like, you're generating money for the shelter, and you got a bakery. The people that's working in the bakery, they need to be the women from the shelter, and not you just hiring some people outside in order to raise money. In order for it to be a 501c3 social enterprise, there has to be connection to the people that you're supporting as well. So in this particular case, yeah, you want to raise donations and things for the bakery, but under the 501c3 social enterprise status to generate revenue, you should hire or have training of people, that women that live in the shelter, that you're teaching them culinary skills. And as you're teaching them culinary skills, then they become part of the bakery, so that then when you generate revenue, the revenue is able to pay them, pay the people that's organizing, but also to pay for the supplies, the material, the flour, the sugar, and all of that, and go back into the program, so that then it does not look like you're just making money. Okay. uh, Thoughts on the for-profit business with nonprofit arm, separate idea? Yeah, so if it is a for-profit business, then as a for-profit, you could have a nonprofit social enterprise arm connected to it, but you would need to have you would have to have two separate identities, correct? Because when it comes down to as a for-profit business, you need to be connected to a nonprofit, where revenues on the nonprofit has its own bank account and so forth for tracking purposes. But if you ever wanted to get a grant, or if you ever wanted to get a donation, or if you ever wanted to, the nonprofit would acquire that, because then it's tax deductible, whereas the for-profit would have to pay taxes on it. Okay, so that's the reason why you want to, if you want to do a for-profit but then have a nonprofit arm, you'll have to create then the nonprofit arm to that for-profit, and it's only to keep things separate. It's really just to keep the money separate, keep the every operation separate, and all of that purpose for tracking. I had one client in the past. He had a photography business, so he was teaching young people photography, but he had a mobile photography business. So he had a nonprofit training program for photography, but then he had a for-profit business for mobile photography. So what he would do is, if there was a grant or anything out there, use that on the nonprofit side to get the money and do the training. And then if there was a workforce development grant where the for-profit could actually do a proposal for that, you bring in his nonprofit in order to then, once they go through the training, bring it in on the for-profit side to actually hire those individuals as apprentice or interns, that so they could get paid uh, through the for-profit institution, and it kind of worked that way. But he had two filing taxes, identities, two different names. The tax filings were different. The bank accounts were different. So you'll have to do all of that if you want to do that. So if you have a for-profit business and you want to do it and establish a foundation, that's fine. It's just creating another organization, and you can do that. So if you have more questions, and I'll type it in here, you can actually send me an email at thughes@gecdc.org if you have other questions related to any of this that I'm speaking of today. But you just got to make sure. Sometimes people actually acquire a legal attorney that understands nonprofit and for-profit as well, because you want to make sure that you don't do anything illegally. Even if you're going to establish a foundation, you want to make sure, even with the foundation, there's certain rules around establishing a foundation compared to a charitable organization, because the foundation does more distribution of grants, to individuals. A foundation does a little bit more of distributing money. Although they do receive money, a larger percentage of the monies they get, they push it back out. They give it away. Okay. whereas just a traditional charitable nonprofit organization is receiving money, okay, in order to execute and do what they have been called to do. So really understanding the difference between the two and making sure that you're being able to do this in the right way. Okay. All right, so we're almost done. Step number 5, 2 more steps. So step number 5 is the registrations. Uh, so with the registrations, we're going to look at the DUNS, the SAMs, the sales tax, Illinois sales tax, and the Illinois Attorney General, which I've kind of talked about a little bit as we've gone along the way. So the first thing is the DUNS number. A lot of people say, well, do I have to do this? A while back, I would say almost maybe 20 years ago, uh, really nonprofits, they could get a DUNS number. It wasn't a requirement. You need it now because they're asking for the number when you're filling out grants and stuff like that. They're asking for the DUNS number. So the DUNS, the Data Universal Numbering System, through Duns and Bradstreet, basically it's giving you a unique numeric identifier so that then it identifies you under a certain as a certain entity, as under a certain industry. Okay, so even that you're a nonprofit, then there's a category of all different types of nonprofit. And so you can go to this hyperlink, or you can actually go to this link. Even if you do a Google search and you just search DUNS number nonprofit, make sure it takes you to the DUNS, the DNB website, because there are a lot of people that are actually selling the service. So they say they'll sign you up for it, and then you have to pay a fee. You don't have to pay a fee for wherever you're going with the DUNS. It's free. So make sure you click on the right link for that. But you can look to see if your organization or company is in there first, because sometimes people set it up, forgot about it, and then didn't realize that they were already in the database. If you are in the database, it'll ask for you for password and that kind of thing, and then you can go and change it. When you do the DUNS, it probably takes no more than 5 or 10 minutes max, and it's just asking name, address, city, state, organization, who are your board members, so you'll have to put their names in there, your phone number, just really general basic information. Once they approve it, they'll actually give you a number, so then you have a DUNS number, and you want to keep that. So you want to keep that in your archives, so that whenever you need it and people ask for the DUNS number, you'll have it. Then there's the SAMS number. So the SAMS is the System of Award Management, and this is through the government. So you can go to www.sams.gov, and you have to register with SAMS. So if you're going after any some of those government grants, it's going to ask you for the SAMS number. Okay, so you'll need to get the SAMS number. So you'll have to go, and you can register as like a new person, a new applicant, and go through the process. The initial process will just get your information, but they're going to wait to hear from DUNS. So that's why you really need to do DUNS first, because SAMS talks to DUNS. So when SAMS gets your name, it's going to ask DUNS, do you know them? And DUNS will say yes, because you're in the system. And then your name will pop up in SAMS, because then they're going to pull some information from DUNS to the SAMS. Okay, and then the second round of things, you'll actually have to go through and fill out some more detailed information. So the process sometimes takes a little bit longer. It could take 10 or 20 minutes. This is free. So SAMS is free, DUNS is free. You don't have to pay anything. You just go to the website, but it will take time, especially like with the SAMS. If they get bogged down and people are having to apply for a certain number or anything like that, what normally may take only 2 weeks to get your number back, I've seen people, it took them 6 weeks. And that's because there was a grant or something out there. The system was out there. Everybody was trying to rush to apply and get the SAMS number before the grant was over with, and it just shut the system down. So this is the time to do all of this now. Do every kind of registration you need, get it done now. Okay. Um, and then there's also another one, I didn't put it on here, but there's another one through Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and actually on our website under the www.gcdc.org with my trainings. When you go to events, you'll see GATA. That's the Grants Accountability and Transparency Act through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity with the state of Illinois. If you're going after a state grant, so the grants that I'm talking about on Monday, you want to register for that. Those grants that I'm going to be talking about on Monday, these are COVID-19 grants that the governor has issued, money that they're giving away. Those grants will require that you have a GATA number. So that's why it's important to make sure you go and register through the state of Illinois and have a GATA number. So make sure you go to our website and go click on events and register for that one. It's recorded already. So all you have to do is just listen to how I'm telling you how to go and apply for the GATA. So you're going to need that if you're going to go after these COVID-19 grants through the state. Okay. So I didn't have it on my slides, but that's something that you definitely have to do. Then you have the Illinois sales tax exempt. So this is really designed for once you're registered as a 501c3 and you have your registration as a 501c3, now you can go to the Illinois Department of Revenue, and you can actually, they'll tell you everything that you need to include. And what will happen is they will give you a sales tax exempt number and also a letter. So that, say for instance, I go to Walgreens or I go to Office Depot or something like that, and I don't want to pay the taxes because the purchases I'm making is for my nonprofit, then I would give them my letter or a copy of my letter. Never give them the original. Make some copies and keep copies with you unless they're keeping it on file for themselves. But you give them a copy of your letter, and what they'll do is then take the tax off your bill because now you're nonprofit tax exempt, and they'll take the tax, so then you don't have to pay for the taxes, you'll just pay for the items, okay? But you need this official letter and this number in order to do that, because they need the number to show that you gave them the letter, they use your number and report it that you made a purchase, and that then and you didn't have to pay the taxes. So that's what exempts you from that. So that's one thing you'll have to do once you get your 501c3. You cannot do the letter before getting the 501c3 status, because one of the attachments they will ask for when you're applying is a copy of your 501c3 letter of determination. So you got to have it. So in order to get tax exempt, you got to be able to produce that letter. Okay. So you'll see when you go to the website, you'll see the list of items that are needed in order to apply to be sales tax exempt. And then the Illinois Attorney General, you want to do this as soon as you get the 501c3, then you want to register with the Attorney General. I believe that's Kwame. So you want to register with that office, with the Illinois Attorney General under charities, and you want to register with them so that then, like I say, they're kind of like the Better Business Bureau for nonprofits, meaning that once you register with them, it shows that you're in good standing. It shows that you are a charitable organization. It kind of covers you so that if somebody's trying to decide if they're going to, give you a donation or not, they want to see if you're legit. that kind of thing. This is where people go just to make sure that everything is on up and up. So you want to register. There are fees for the Attorney General. So you'll have to go in and fill out the form. I think there's a AG 990. There's another form. So there's about 2 forms that you have to fill out. They almost look like income tax forms. So if you haven't generated any money yet, most of your numbers are going to be 0. And then when you turn them in, you should always send a self-addressed stamp envelope, because they won't return the form back showing that it was approved. You have to request that they give you a copy. So you have to give them a self-addressed stamp envelope in order to get it back, because if not, they're not going to give it back to you. They will put you in their system though. So once you start building, your reporting, you can always go to your name and see where your last report was, and then pull up that report and download it as a PDF, and you can keep it for your files that way as well. Okay. Then of course, step number 6, just talking about files, ongoing compliance, and annual reports. So you want to make sure that whatever you have registered for with the Attorney General, you have to do the annual report. Also with Secretary of State Jesse White, you have to do that annually. Normally they send you some kind of letter or notice that your annual is about to come up to expire. So definitely you want to adhere to that, because if you lose the status, you'll have to reapply again, or whatever the case may be. So you want to make sure that you are keeping up to date with the state, and also with the Attorney General. And then also the SAMs, I think it's like every 60 to 90 days they expire. They normally send you an email and say it's about to expire. You have to change your password. That's what's expiring. So you'll have to go in and update and do another password. So it's almost best that you kind of like write on a sheet of paper or a tablet or something your passwords that you've had, because it won't allow you to repeat the same password over. You got to come up with another one. Then for annual reporting, you have to do a 990 with the IRS. So this is for your 501c3. In order to be in good standing with the IRS every year, is just like with your taxes, you have to report. Okay. If you have not generated revenue over 50,000, you can do a 990 EZ. So it's a postcard. Sorry. So it's a 990 postcard, and you can go to irs.gov and just type 990 postcard, and it'll actually launch you to the page, and you can set up an account if you don't have one already. And once you set it up, every year, if you haven't made more than 50,000, then you can actually do an EZ, which basically you just make sure all your information is up to date. You hit the button and they'll approve you right away, and they'll give you a print off online of saying that you have done your 990 for the year, and you just keep that in your file. Do a PDF, print it, keep it for your file, so that then you have record that you've done your annual reporting. Okay. So all of those are things that you need to keep in compliance and make sure that everything is in order. So here's from Betty Reese that says, if you think you're too small to be effective, then you've never been in bed with a mosquito. So I love that, because the thing is, whatever you're thinking about doing, you are not too small. Whatever you plan on doing, you can get it done. You just need to have the right team, a good team to work with you, because you can be effective, that you can do this. That's why it's important to establish a mission and a purpose for whatever you want to do, that you want to make sure that how you're doing and whatever you're doing, You want to make sure that you're being able to be effective to get the mission and the purpose out there, so that you can change the world, and you can. It's just you have to have a plan. And so the whole purpose of this session, this webinar, was to make sure that you had the steps and the things that you need in place. I've been in the nonprofit world now for over 24 plus years. I had my own company. I don't do a lot of it, but I was grant writer for over 20 something plus years in the corporate kind of world, working for educational institutions and other nonprofits, actually assisting with grants and things of that sort. So that's where my history, my background comes from, and understanding this world. I've also done grant reviewing on the federal level. So I've done some peer review grants for Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Justice, and the Children and Family Services. So I've done some grant reviewing, so I understand proposals. I understand the setup that you need as a nonprofit in order to be effective. And I have, assisted nonprofits, small and large ones, to really get into the millions of dollars and get what they need. So many times when, even on the grant, on this side with Greater Englewood CDC, I really look at what your organization is going to do and look at your structure, because if you don't have the structure, I can already tell you, you're probably not going to get a grant. I can look at it. And that's why that strategy, that plan, and everything needs to be put together very well in order for you to really go after and to build your organization. Again, think about, as a nonprofit, that it's not all grants, meaning that I know you need the money to get started and to do things, but you cannot depend totally on grants, because if there isn't a grant and you still want to run the organization, your revenue is going to have to come from somewhere else. Okay, so it's just something that you need to know going in from the beginning, that, I want a grant. That's great. There are grant dollars out there, but there's competition out there too. So the more structured you are, and the better you can put a plan together and have a strategy on how you're going to grow, a reviewer will be able to see that. When they read it, they'll be able to see it. And if they think you are not structured and you don't have the strategy, then whoever's competing for the money, they'll probably get the money. And I've seen this over and over again, that I've helped individuals with trying to get grants, even at large institutions that were denied, and it was because they didn't put the information in the infrastructure together, and they didn't get the grant money that they needed to, and missed out on many times because they didn't have the structure. So we never want to kind of throw things together. So this is the time right now that if you are talking about starting a nonprofit, that you get the structure together. You do whatever you need to do, so that then when these opportunities come out, there's a lot of opportunities right now that are coming out, particularly related to businesses as well as nonprofits, that can qualify for some of the dollars that are going out there now. You have to have the paperwork. You got to have the structure, because if you don't have it, when they ask for it and you're not able to produce it, it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to kind of throw you out of the mix. So you want to make sure that you have everything in order, aligned, and you can be very successful even as a nonprofit organization if you make sure that you just have all your ducks in a row. So just wanted to state that. If there are any questions or anything that you have right now, as we've gone through, it was a lot of information. Again, I'm recording this, so once the recording is available, we'll be sending this recording out. We're actually going to put it on our YouTube channel, so that then you'll be able to view it there as well. And also, if you'd like to share. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share and to be able to just share my knowledge with you with trying to get this done. I'm personally more of a nonprofit person compared to a for-profit. And just being in this industry, I'm also a minister, so I understand, and I have and are in a couple of nonprofit organizations now, and so I understand how to be competitive, because you will have to be competitive, but it is doable, and you can actually get this done. So I'm very encouraged and hope you'll reach out to us. Again, my email address that you can reach out to me is thughes at gecdc.org. So you can reach out, thughes at gecdc.org. That's my email address. So you can reach out and ask whatever questions that you have. Again, we're doing this on the Greater Englewood CDC side. So we're able to support you as an organization if you're a nonprofit. So just reach out to us. We'll be able to help you or assist you. I also do workshops. So if you have an organization, on my for-profit side, if you need a training for your board and stuff like that, you can reach out to me that way, and I'll send you some information from my for-profit business side if you like to, have some support that way. And then just keep up with us, because I'm always doing training. Like I said, proposal one-on-one is out there right now, so it takes you through the proposal. On Monday, we'll be talking about the RFP and the money that's out there related to some of the grants that the governor has issued for. And then we're always doing these type of workshops. We'll probably do some more grant writing workshops. So just talking about grants and how to find them and that kind of thing. So that'll be coming up next month. We'll be doing some of that. So we try to offer as much information as possible, so that you're able to navigate this grand world and navigate the nonprofit world. Okay. So if there are no other questions, I'm kind of like trying to look at my chat box. You can also unmic yourself if you want to say it aloud. But if there are no other questions, definitely email me, get more detail about whatever. I do have templates and that kind of thing. I have things on how to build a mission statement, what you need to say. I have samples on that. So if you need that, if you need to figure out a budget, how to do a nonprofit budget, I have some templates on how to build a budget if you need that. If you need a sample of bylaws, I have some samples of bylaws that can help you. So I have samples. So just reach out to me on whatever types of things you need, and then we can communicate that way. Okay. So somebody say yes, the budget. That many people get caught up with the budget, and it can be challenging. And you never want to wait to the last minute to do a budget, especially if there's a grant out there, because it's going to ask you how much does it cost, how many people you're going to support, who's going to be on your team, how many salaries are you going to pay, how many consultants will you have, how much supply will you need, what type of equipment. That's what the budget is asking. And so you need to pull together a budget. You can use an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. You can go into Word, create tables, and in the tables, do the categories. It's just that you'll have to calculate it yourself. But you should have, when you start out, at least a basic budget. And then you may need a budget for each program. So you need an overall budget, operation budget. But then if you have several different programs, each one of those programs will need a budget. Okay. So you should work on that now, so that then when these opportunities come up, at least you have a basis with a budget that you can start working on right now. So because some of these deadlines and some of these grants that are out there, they only give you 40 days. And really with this COVID kind of stuff, some of these are only 20 days, if less. So that means you got to be ready. So if you have the basic proposal plan, you have the basic budget, then you can work from there. And then if you need to alter and change numbers and that kind of thing, great. But have something now. This is the time to prepare. This is the time to do it right now and to get it done. And so I have some of those tools that can help you. Just email me, and we'll be able to email those sample documents and tools so that then you can create what you need. Okay. All right. Thank you again so much for being on the line with me. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for your questions. Hopefully we answered everything. And if you, again, need more detail, just send us, shoot me an email and I'll respond back to you. Please share this information once it's available on our recording. You can definitely share with other people. And then also stay in contact with our website, gcdc.org, for any other workshops that you might be interested in. So this has been Tamora Hughes. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a wonderful Friday, rest of your Friday, and a wonderful weekend, and hope to see and chat with you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.